Over to you, Stephen, for your case study.
Thanks, Henry. Yeah, so into the case study, just like building out some of the principles behind it, and some of the principles I try to follow. I put a few down here, early and often. I think this like underpins like the product framework, around validating everything extremely early and often throughout the process. So doing that frequently. Listen and extract. This is a bit of a personal one for me. I'm a bit of a talker, so I have to kind of curtail that. So really listen to the problem and extract the detail. I mean this in like almost the interview sense. So, don't lose yourself. Don't get too involved. Sit back, let people talk. Yes, ask the questions, but really give the users time to kind of give their input and remove your vanity from it. Focus. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much self-explanatory. Don't lose focus on the big items. They're going to be likely to be high impact and likely to be high value. So don't sweat the small stuff. It won't give you the value you need. Mistakes and failures. That's a little bit of a good one as well for me. Something, learning throughout your career. It's not a bad thing to fail, but know why you failed and what you can learn from that. And have fun. That's a bit of an extra one for me. It's serious, but not serious. You need to enjoy the journey. If you aren't enjoying it, you need to question why. If you aren't sold on the problem and the solution, no one else is going to be. So, have fun with it and try and be happy and involved as possible. Some of the processes followed, understand. So for me, it was understanding, whether I had the right individuals to the right niche and the right problem. So did they link together, or were they slightly misaligned? Did I have to refocus on that? Ideate. So to come up with the first sort of ideas around the solution and the goals, in the direction you want to go in. And then through the process, like we talked about early and often, validate, really see if some of the things resonated through different ways, like clicks, surveys, user interviews. Experiment, so run user tests on like the prototype. It's one thing having like an offer statement or a vision statement, but you need to back it up with a bit of a solution. So have that prototype and experiment with it. And learn. I mean, that's throughout the whole process. The whole process is learning at each stage. So understand if the problem is valid, deciding whether to stick with it or pivot, find like the right outlets for it. And I'll come to that. That was a good one for me. And iterating the solution at the end. So we started with quite a large problem statement. So we believe that line managers are currently frustrated by not being able to give effective feedback to their direct reports. And they want to have a time-effective way of providing clear feedback leading to employee growth. So quite a few things in there, really. Line managers want to give effective feedback. They want speed. They want to save time on it. They don't have the time to do it. And they want to have growth at the end. So they want an outcome for their employees. So that, for me, the idea and frustration was kind of born out of my personal experience, because I know typically line managers, I believe, are crunched for time, and I've not got that kind of feedback from them that I needed. So this is, coming back to that, have fun, I'm engaged. This is something I really wanted to help with in this space. So it's something, I was immediately invested in. So we wanted to validate that problem, or the assumption that there was a problem. And again, it's really important to do this at an early stage, because going any further through the process could lead to like more costs, potential loss of time, money, if it's not validated early and you get it wrong. So we had a few OKRs to do this. So we set on 5 user interviews as our main focus for validation. Ideally, I'd like to have done more, but that was a time crunch thing. So we're trying to achieve or get the interviews locked in through outreach campaign, on LinkedIn and existing kind of business relations. We wanted to capture the qualitative feedback gathered in those sessions and use it to analyze against the problem statement. And the last one I kind of put in, it's a bit of a soft one, but we just wanted to see if there's an indicator of interest. It's a soft OKR, but it kind of give you, a gut feel, just having clicks, feedback, response, anything in there to kind of help with that, like having new connections, using the problem statement as a grounding, those kind of things. So for the problem validation itself, hitting on those OKRs, we hit the one for the user interviews. We got 5 user interviews there, which was great. And that provided extremely valuable insight into the validation of the frustration or the problem area. So some key touch points around what we actually got out of the interviews. The first one was that line managers did actually want to help their employees achieve. I think that's like the first real validation of the problem, although it's not in there. If they don't want to do that, the rest is dead. If they don't care about their employees, then that doesn't matter. Another one was around time. So that was a repeated factor. That was one of our assumptions. They are busy, and especially the ones with even more direct reports. So the ones that got 1 or 2, they're busy, but the ones that have got maybe 5, 6, they're even busier. One other item that came out was around frustration with the feedback. So employees can get frustrated with the feedback. That was actually a bit of a surprise to me. Maybe it's my personality, but it became more apparent that it's a real issue faced by many. So it's around how the employees receive feedback. Some are okay with that hard and fast, you've done it wrong. Some prefer like the softer touch, here's ways to improve, like carrot and stick, 2 different methods there, and somewhere in between. Lastly, one of the other key items was nothing comes out of the feedback. So although managers may actually give some feedback, there's nothing actionable born out of that, and in most cases, nothing achieved. So with that information, we're able to kind of flip those problems or key problem areas into another form of test. In this case, building out, the minimum viable offer. So, the MVO, minimal viable offer, that's really a statement of what we will offer. So who we are helping, what we are helping them to achieve, and how we're going to do it. So like I was saying, we took those problem areas, themed the problem areas, and looked at high touch points. And just recapping those, in this case, it was really time, the ability to give effective feedback, so something actionable that's going to incite change or improvement, and also empathy, so being understanding that each individual takes feedback better in differing ways. So I just want to say here, this is probably the area I iterated the most throughout. So this kind of MVO statement, personally, going through the iteration, starting with the first one and until one that I wanted to release. And also, I did release different versions of this as well, but we'll touch on that in the next slide. So the MVO was, we help busy managers become inspiring mentors with fast, effective feedback. So again, here we're wanting to test this out, make sure it's okay. So we wanted to build a sample landing page and survey to kind of qualify those leads. We were trying to get survey completions here. So, we're trying to ground that it is a problem, but we're also actually trying to get some more input there so that we can validate that MVO as a foundation moving forward. So onto the kind of experiment side and the validation. Now, I don't actually have the original view of the MVO on the site or the survey, but that kind of shows how quickly things moved and iterated and evolved. That was gone like that. So I'll quickly talk through like the learnings, and I kind of did 3 things, or we did 3 things here, and retrospectively, I wish I probably put a bit more time in here or a bit more focus. So we released the MVO on LinkedIn on a post. We iterated the MVO, so we changed it and released it again. And I'll talk through why we did that. And then finally, we released the iterated, so the second version of the MVO on a Reddit post. So the different channel. So kind of the first MVO that we spoke about, just to go into some of the results, we got a large number of views on it, but we got no starts on the survey, we got no completions. We kind of spoke about, the survey being a big commitment there. It's psychological, right? It's a wall for some individuals. So really, at this point, we've kind of validated the MVO. We've got a lot of views there. We're kind of happy with that. We've got the click-throughs, but we haven't got any information. So, at that point, I did want to flip and switch. I did want that information. I really wanted to drive for more clarity in the problem areas and types of problems. So that's why I flipped the MVO. I wanted that cold hard data in the survey completions. And we kind of flipped it to, we help overloaded managers build passionate, empowered teams with efficient and productive feedback. You know, I posted that on LinkedIn, same channel, literally got 0 hits, 0 results, which is fine. You know, it's good to know that the change made no difference. You know, in fact, you know, it could have been negative at the end of the day. That could have been a negative change. Finally, we did like one last switch, which is where we post the MBA. And I found the channel Reddit for this, you know, which allows you to kind of easily target a demographic through use of their subreddits. And from that, I mean, we spoke about in the other one, I got 42 views. From the Reddit one, we got 51 views. From the other item, we got 0 starts on LinkedIn, but this one we got 32 starts. And then completions. I'll say this, you know, just quickly, 3 completions, but most of them were useless, right? Either empty or, you know, they're one-word answers. But it really added that validation there. So here we've built out the survey, the landing page, semi-validated the MVO through that kind of those completions or starts. And it's good enough at this stage. You know, along with this, and on this screen, you can kind of see it, is we assess the key competitors in the areas, or who we believe to be the key competitors, and what areas they touch on. So some of them would be like engagement in their feedback, you know, empathy, we spoke about one of those ones for us, integrations and speed, you know, speed or quick. I don't know if I can hover over it, is this section just here, and we're the blue line. So it became clear that that's an area lacking in the competitor space and something we could focus on. So, you know, now we've got the confidence and the focus to turn that minimum viable offer into a vision, you know, using that validation and the blue canvas. Just a key learning before I move on there, you know, and I touched on it. It was kind of finding the right platform to send out that minimum viable offer. You know, that was one of the areas that I wish I'd spent more time on. You know, that was tough finding that. So if you do have time, that's something retrospectively I'd look at and find a good space. You know, that's going to be different to whatever niche you have. Yeah, just before we go on to the vision statement, you know, here's kind of like the lean canvas. This is the finalized one, so it technically would come at the end of this whole process. But I just wanted to drop it in here because it's where we're building it out and building out our learnings and assumptions along the way. And it gives a view of, you know, where we're heading and why we're heading there. And one of the things you'll notice there is like the channels we discussed, you know, being LinkedIn and Reddit. You know, this is something we want to kind of focus on. It was a possible at this stage, but actually we've confirmed that's a probable, that's a better one maybe than LinkedIn. So that's one we should focus on and flip on this. You know, we're forming out our unique value proposition here to kind of help guide us as well, which, you know, that feeds into our vision statement, and it's just a really good document to have and help. So our vision statement, well, ended up being constructive feedback in seconds. So it was on one of the previous slides. But at this point, we've really dialed in to focus on what we believe to be the key problem areas, you know, okay, and but also reflecting on what we think is achievable there. You know, we've done away with empathy at this stage. You know, we've not got that in there. You know, is that we believe would take up a lot of upfront time and effort. You know, we've dialed in on that constructive and quick feedback. So something hopefully we can offer simply and do with relative ease. So yeah, moving on to you know, hypothesis number 3. Now we did miss out a stage here, which is around like recording and showcasing our prototype on our site to like really pull in the beta testers. But simply put, we had time constraint there, so we enlisted beta testers for this stage through our existing contacts rather than another outreach campaign. So here we're looking to validate that the core value of the product or no-code prototype we're offering delivers 2 key things of value from our vision statement. It's speed, it's fast, and they're saving time. And constructive feedback, you know, they have an outlet to give the constructive feedback. So we're doing that through the no-code prototype, through the testers on there, and eventually we're gonna roll that into our kind of product market fit engine. So like I was saying, we built the no-code prototype. We used Figma for that. It was like a nice little click-through that allows users to find their own path through or not, depending on whether it matches their expectation. And this is where I'd say the stage we're at now. So far, we've run 2 user tests and looking to run a few more and get a few more in. It's overall kind of positive feedback, but just to dial that in a bit more. You know, as a prototype itself is in early stages, it really focuses in on the Slack feedback side. So we're offering the ability to do it through kind of like an instant messaging. This meant, you know, for our prototype, there was clarity lacking around where the feedback goes. So after that stage, so really here in our prototyping stage, we've actually only focused in on the speed, not the constructive side. So when we were running this, some small items came out of the feedback, which kind of help and feed into like a product roadmap. But, you know, just to touch on those, you know, it was some of the wording around the buttons and some of those kind of frustrations within it. You know, those kind of things. But overall, it was positive. You know, when conducting those interviews and running those tests, the speed through the app, particularly one of the users, you know, it was seconds. So it showed that they're clicking in the right areas that we expected. It gave us good insight into that UX flow. And like I said, the actual validation of, you know, whether they found it a true value, I think will come later in the product market fit engine through the surveys and feedbacks there, but we're not at that stage. We're still at this kind of beta testing stage. Just to kind of touch on the product market fit engine. So this is the stage we're at now. So I just wanted to run through, you know, kind of what we will do here. So we've run the initial beta test with the prototype, but still wielding out kind of the data fully from that to fit into the product market fit engine. So this really sits under our jobs to be done. So, you know, we want to run some more surveys, run some more beta tests. We want to find out and ask some key questions like what is the main benefit they receive from this? What type of people do they think would use it and the improvements? We want to segment those individuals. So we're really interested in, you know, asking the question, how would they feel if they could no longer use this product? And we're interested in people who would be disappointed or very disappointed. Anyone else, we're just going to shun to the side at this point. We just want those people that are really interested to give us feedback at this stage and help build it out. Then, as I said, we want to use that feedback to help guide us and see what the key points are. We might do that using like a word map or by theming the feedback into actionable clusters. We'll then build and form out our implementation phase where we'll build and iterate. And just to touch on that, you know, kind of an example of where we'll be heading just into one of those word maps in the next stage. So from that, we've got our final section here, which is, you know, as I was talking, what stage we're at and the jobs to be done. So, you know, we want to, you know, fully complete that first round, that first product market fit engine. We want to iterate on the prototype based on the feedback and really dial it in, perhaps run another round of beta tests after that to dial it in even further and look at the PMF again. We want to produce that additional section, you know, the feedback master section that I spoke about. Where does that feedback go? And what can they do, you know, once it's done, what will give them something actionable out the back of it? And then really we want to kind of release a first slice, work in beta, you know, send it to the wild, let them have at it and see what happens. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. And that's really the end of the presentation there, Henry.
Awesome. You nailed it for timing as well. Really good. So I'm going to go over, I'm just going to bang through specific points on the case study. And then, yeah, we could talk about next steps, I think. Sort of, you know, where you want to go with this, I suppose. Mm-hmm. Good. Generally, it really well presented, actually. One of the best. Throughout, there's a very clear journey, right? One big mistake is people just sort of, the slides don't tie together. For me, there's a very clear journey. Like everything flowed into each other really well. Hypothesis 1 and why you ended up doing hypothesis 2. Really nice definition of the MVO. Really nice definition of the PMF engine as well. The survey, like why are we doing that? So everything flowed really well. Everything made sense. You show something, it's like, oh, it makes sense because you had described it really clearly. Specifics on the principles, good. These are nicely personalized, early and often. I like it, right? These are kind of simple maxims, like when you pass this on to your team, or say you had a product, right? Say a few things, but say them really clearly and simple. So this kind of principles are really strong. The problem felt a bit long, but you did then break it down really well with bullet points. So it was a very clear description. Hypothesis 1, beyond just making it very clear, it was great you did the cold outreach, and why as well. Like, why were we doing that? We're looking for this sort of indicator. I call it the signal amongst the noise. Mm-hmm. And it's great again, like, it's not, it's not an exact thing, but we're trying to just see, like, is this roughly right? I think reinforcing that point is really good, which you did do. Hypothesis one as well. Great learnings. May seem simple, but it's so important to go, line managers with lots of employees, like, this is a more acute problem for them and they've got less time.
Yeah.
Insights around different employees need different feedback styles. The feedback they're getting is lacking actionability, like it's not actionable. These are the kinds of things that make up your unique insight, your unique approach to a problem space, which there's a lot of things in there, right? So I think it's exactly why we did it. And it's great that you can sort of get that learning or experience that. MBA, the statement, the wording was really strong. Great, you iterated a lot. You could have, I feel you missed an opportunity here if you were presenting this internally, missed an opportunity to say, like, why you iterated so much, which is ultimately like, if we don't get this right, the foundation's all wrong. Right? We're going to build the wrong thing. We're going to waste resources. We're going to fail. So really hammer that point home. And although you got 3 responses, like 50% start rate is good. That's signal. That's indicator. That shows that people are bothering to even click the link, and then they go a little bit further as well. So you've got something that's resonating. You may not convince them to put the work in, but that's fine. It's just a statement on a website at this stage. And again, you said, self, what's the word for it? Effacing, right? We got no hits on the second or the LinkedIn outreach, for example. And it's just part of the process. It's so important that you reinforce that kind of thing with your team, right? And just show, like, it is fine to fail. And I can show by laughing at, my own, this experiment that didn't work. That kind of thing's so important, because building a culture where it's comfortable, people are fine taking risks. That's the most important thing you can do in terms of a leader, but it's really hard because it takes a lot of, setting ego aside and just being very honest. On the blue ocean, so initially I was writing notes as, I felt it could be a bit more focused. You could have just looked at 1 or 2 things and not tried to be 5 to 8 on everything, but just say, like, I'm going to be 10 out of 10 on 1, 2, maybe 3 things. But you did come onto that after, and it's really nice because you had your blue ocean, then your hypothesis 3, you'd learn actually to be more focused. You talked about speed, providing constructive feedback as your 2 key points of value. So I suspect if you did the blue ocean now, you probably would come out with a really nice differentiated offer, focused offer. Hypothesis 4, not only did I like the solution, which is super simple, but you're very good in terms of presenting. Like, you went high level, you didn't go through the whole details of the whole flow, which, if you're pitching this, like, people don't care about. It's really high level, really clear though, and you went into detail when it made sense. It's like, we built the Slack integration because of speed, right? You can do it in seconds. And then you showed a story of how a user did do it in seconds. There's a really strong kind of thing you just remember, like, a week, 2 weeks after. And I think for you, from a personal perspective, I think it's great that some seemingly obvious things come up in the first test, right? It's like, where do you put the results? And I think it's such a good learning for you to realize that, it's easy for us to think that doing customer research takes loads of time that we don't have. But actually, it's far quicker putting something out there and getting these ideas back and then iterating really quickly than us sitting in a room brainstorming as a team for weeks on end. You just put something out, iterate. Obvious things will come out, and that's completely fine. Right? Use feedback. Don't try and second guess the market ever, as you did. So that's a great learning for you to have. On the product market fit engine, excellent overview, excellent description. Good point as well. It's like, we can't really test the core value until they complete the feedback loop. So in this case, further down the line, you might go, right, we actually do have to build this. We have to see what happens when they do the real meeting. You could run a few more iterations with prototypes. At some point, you've got to build the real thing. Only criticism would be the jobs to be done. Right? Jobs to be done there's a bonus video on this, so don't worry if you didn't watch it yet. But jobs to be done is not a to-do list. Right? It's the jobs the customer want us to solve for them.
Right.
It would really be, okay, you take your sort of messy feedback and go, here are 3 specific things the customer wants. For example, as John, I want to review, like, all my feedback. As John, I want to get an overview of the feedback for each of my team members, for example.
Yeah. Okay.
A high level roadmap, essentially. But generally really good. I think, general comments just to wrap up, just got 1 minute left. I think really good. I think you started in your new role, and I think this is from my perspective, you've grown a lot, and I think the timing has been good. I mean, I imagine it's been a lot of pressure, a lot of work. I suspect in 3-6 months, you're going to see massive value from the work you put in of just taking this stuff into your new role, particularly if you've got a new product coming your way, or you're going to be working on something new. I think you're ready, and I can tell by the way that you talk through things, right? You understand these concepts because you can describe them in simple terms. So that's really that's the key to it. People that don't understand them use complex words because they're hiding their lack of comfort with the concepts. So my feeling is that you're definitely ready to take this, and I think it's a great opportunity with the next product to roll these concepts out. And I think on that, in terms of concrete next steps, June the 7th, we're going to be rolling out the whole new version of the program with like everything in Miro, everything as actionable as possible. So I would like you to sort of take that and apply it with the next product ultimately.
Yeah,
I think that's a good goal to have, to take, great, good learning so far, but now take you to that next step is putting it into action. And again, I think that's taking you from, sort of comfortable as a product manager to product leadership. I think it's a really good window of opportunity.
Awesome.
Well, as I said, I think you're in a really good place. I think you're exactly where you need to be. And I was really happy with that case study. So, next steps, as I said, I think everyone stay in touch on Slack. I'm going to make sure we're doing a few more events and sort of community meetups, this kind of thing.
Yeah, that'd be good.
From there, onwards and upwards as well.
Yeah, excellent.
Nice one. Thanks, Stephen. Well, have a good weekend. Have a rest as well. Busy weeks as well. And hopefully we'll catch up soon for an in-person meetup in London.
Yeah, that'd be great.
It's the plan over summer, so fingers crossed. Start planning in a week or two.
Yeah.
Awesome. Cheers, Stephen. Have a good week.
Cheers, Henry. You too. Bye.
Bye-bye.